to my okay. So this is the official wording. Let me introduce to you our speaker today. Today is February 8th, 2024, and our guest today is John Hartman, who just received his ASP Fellowship. He's a master photographer, master artist, photographic craftsman, certified professional photographer, and the list goes on. John Hartman opened his studio in 1974, specializing in portraiture of high school seniors, children, and families. He developed marketing and sales programs for his studio that have benefited thousands of photographers worldwide. His willingness to venture outside the box has kept his work relevant and helps to maintain his enthusiasm for photography. Now, that's what it says. If you were at Imaging last week, you probably in the exhibition hall saw in the back there where we had the fellowships have their 25 images up there. We'll talk about Randy's next week, but John's was up there. And if you, the work that John put up there, those 25 images of those cars, the way that they were lit and the background, just truly extraordinary. His earning of the fellowship, being a recipient of the fellowship degree, was well earned and certainly in deserving. What a masterpiece of art that he has created, a body of work that is unsurpassed when it comes to lighting. So John, it is an absolute delight to have you with us. As he is giving his presentation this afternoon, if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand or chime in and ask your questions. No need to wait till the end of the interview. He's willing to take your questions as he's talking because they'll be relevant to the moment when he's talking. So feel free to share and ask your questions or comments while John is giving his presentation. So I've talked long enough. I want to turn this over to John. John, what a great honor to have you with us. The floor is yours.
Thank you, John. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, and as a long-time member of ASP, I think I got my educational associate degree in 1992, if I'm not mistaken. So I've been a member for a very long time. I was on the board for a while, and I just think the world of this organization, and I'm honored to be able to finally have a set of images that I felt worthy of possibly entering for the fellowship degree, and I'm glad it happened. It didn't happen overnight. It didn't even happen in one time, but I'm happy to be here. So apologize in advance if I have to cough once in a while. I picked up a cold in Kentucky, and I have all that's left of it is a hack. So if you hear me coughing, it's not, and it's not COVID. So it's just as annoying. So anyway, glad to be here. And again, as John said, I'd rather have you ask questions as they go on. I prefer to present from a presentation software rather than just talking. So I'm going to share my screen. I've got a keynote put up together to show you that. I don't think I'm going to be able to see you during that time. So raising your hand isn't going to help. So you just got to interrupt me as we talk if you have any questions about anything. Okay, are we okay with that? I'm going to see if I can do this now, and go like this, and we'll go like that. Can you all see?
Yes, we can see. And Robin, you had your hand up.
Robin, go ahead.
Oh, never mind. I figured it out because you muted everybody. I wasn't sure how we were going to be able to speak up, but we can still unmute ourselves. So correct. I got it.
Okay.
Thanks.
And I guess I can see at least a handful of you here on there, but again, don't hesitate to speak up. So I think the thing that I have to right off the bat is acknowledge a couple of people have been just instrumental in helping me get this fellowship. And John Allen, many years ago, when I first started doing the light painting thing, he said, you got to go for your fellowship. And I really had not had any kind of a feeling that, anything that I was doing would be worthy of something like that. And he said, no. And he gave me lots of advice. And as did later on Carl and Gabriel. And so I couldn't have done it without these guys. I just want to acknowledge them right now. They're all good guys. They're all, of course, they're all fellows. And And I've known John and Carl's because they were members of the Wisconsin group for decades. So it's good to have them help out. And I appreciate their help. I have to acknowledge them for now. So, I'm just going to go a couple of things about light painting because my fellowship paper is that. And a lot of people looked at the photographs, and if you don't know what they are, they're hard. It's kind of like, what is that? How do you do that? The first time I ever saw a light painted image was on a website I was looking at. A friend of mine, Kevin Raber, had a website called Luminous Landscape. And I kept looking at these photographs and going, that's really cool. How do they do that? And I think photographers in general, they tend to look at photographs, and we can generally look at an image and we can deconstruct it. We can go, okay, out of focus background, F2.8. Circular catch lights in the eyes, they used a round umbrella. No force shortening, there's a long lens. You kind of figure it all out. The light's coming from the left. There's a little kicker light. Yeah, I could do that. But I looked at that light painting and I went, I don't know how in the world they did that. And to me, that was just fascinating. So I had to learn something. I had to go and find out more about it because really, it is, in my opinion, if you do a Google search on light painting, this is what you get. This is, and certainly, I'm not going to say that isn't light painting, but that's not the light painting that I'm interested in doing. The light painting that I saw in that catalog or that website was done by a fellow by the name of Harold Ross. He's a commercial photographer in Western Pennsylvania and Central Pennsylvania. And so I saw that he had a workshop, and it wasn't working with my time frame, but I called my friend Ralph Romagara and said, Ralph, you want to go out to Pennsylvania and learn how to do light painting? He said, sure. So I called Harold and said, could you come out and could you do a workshop for the two of us? He said, sure. So we went out to his place, and I got kind of the basic idea of what it is. But this is my thought process of what my definition of light painting is. And in that, it is simply the process of putting continuous light on specific areas of an image, and then later on merging them into a single photograph. And in my opinion, the look that you can get with light painting is completely unlike anything else you can get. You could not make this photograph with pin lights or anything else. So that's kind of my definition of what light painting is.
I'm sorry, John.
Yeah.
Are we supposed to be seeing images here?
Are you not?
Yeah,
No, we're
John,
just seeing a picture of you, which is lovely.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, so let me go back. Bear
thank
with
you,
me.
Robin. I was
I
about to
see that thing.
interject.
Thank you for telling me that. Yeah, it said, let me go back here. Interesting. Okay, I gotta go back and share the screen. It said,
John, it was a nice picture of you. That's how come no one said
Yeah,
it.
it was.
oh yeah, wow, cool. That's cool. I'll see if we can make that work. So nothing, you didn't see anything at all so far.
We
All right.
saw
No.
you.
I saw you.
Share. Here we go. Okay. How do I do this? Share screen. Here it is. Okay, once more. Right there. Share. And now you can see it.
All right, we're getting
Yes.
a still shot there of a vase and glass.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
It says your screen sharing is paused. I've never heard of that before. So how do I unpause it? If I go to the next slide, can you see that?
Give it a try.
I just did. You're not seeing it.
No,
No.
we're still on the same one.
Well, resume share. Maybe I'll do this. I'm hitting resume share. Okay. Move to the bottom. Nope, that's not it. Stop share. I'll try it one more time.
Sure.
Nice to work with a professional, huh? Someone who really knows what they're doing. Let's see. I only have Zoom open, so you're not seeing any of that, right?
Nope.
Okay.
I apologize. This is all my fault. We were talking about the weather and everything, and we should have done a test run. So
Well,
I
that's
knew
all right.
that you had the screen, but we should have done a test run. I apologize.
So, no, that's okay. We'll get this right. Here we go. Share screen. Okay. That's can you see anything now?
Nothing.
How about anything now?
Something's coming up. Okay. We're getting yes, your
You should see a bunch of different screens, right?
Yep, exactly.
All right. So now, can you see me now?
I see you.
Okay, but I don't know, understand why it says your screen sharing is paused. That's really strange. Why would it do that? Share sound, optimize.
Anybody has some Zoom background and guidance, we're all ears.
Yeah, I've been doing these for a zillion years. I've never had an issue with it.
Do you have more than one screen?
No,
Oh, that's not it.
it says you are chatting as a guest. Oh, you know what? I think I have to have permission from somebody, from one of you guys to share my screen.
I gave you permission.
Okay, well, that's nice. I appreciate that. Let's
Try
see.
it now. I just clicked an extra button here.
Let's try that. All right, now it says your screen sharing. If I switch it, are you seeing a?
Blank.
Yeah, but now you're seeing John.
Yep.
Or-
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Well, whatever you did was right. All right. So
Oh,
here it is.
What it
My dad-
is you can, I had to click who can start sharing when someone else is sharing. I
Ah.
gave you authority to share, but okay, that must have been my fault. I apologize.
No
I have to
problem.
give you a permission to share your own sharing. Okay, John, it's all yours.
All right. So now you can see this, right?
Yes.
Okay. That's what happens when you query light painting. No wonder nobody got that. Like, yeah, okay, that's what happened. I queried light painting today, and that's what it is. It's like, yeah, it kind of is, but it's not what my definition of it. So this is my definition. Again, it's just and I saw this. Go back here. Go back one more time. Let's see if I can go back to Harold's. Okay. My thought process is that you really have to be able to see light painting as the ability to just add light to certain parts of the image. And it's completely different from making flash photographs because you can't see it right away. You're only seeing one tiny little image at a time. And that's, to me, the exciting part about light painting is that you when you do it, you don't know what you're going to get until you're done. So that's what I find is fascinating. This is what Harold, this is the kind of stuff that Harold does. He's a fine artist, so his stuff is kind of, it's pretty like this, but it's not. I mean, who's going to buy this? I mean, maybe it's somebody that's going to buy it. But I've always, in my whole life, I've always looked at, because I've never done anything else but photography since I was 18 years old. Never had a job. This is all I've ever done. So everything I've ever done looking at photography has always been in the back of my mind, how can I commercialize this? How can I monetize this? So I thought it was fun at first, but that somehow if I'm going to do this, I want to try to make it, make it go. So I tried to do a lot of different things. This is the very first light painting I ever did as a orchids in my studio. Tried it when my son helped me out. This is one that we did, thinking at the Dallas PPA last year. Some food. This is one of my guitars I did. We have a guy down the street. You guys don't have people like this probably, except maybe Randy, who builds snow sculptures, and they actually stick around for a while. And this guy does it down the street, does fantastic ones. And you can't see him very well during the day because the lighting is always terrible. So I thought, well, light painting, this would be really nice. So that's what we did for him. And still life stuff. This was done for a painting class I did for at the local university. This was actually done with a light on a drone, moving around all over all kinds of rocks and trees and stuff, and adding those images together. This is you can light paint people. Nikki Harrison and I did this. This is Kalina Schneider. If you know Kelly and Kalina, they're just really great fine art portraitists. And Kalina, Kelly, I didn't have anything to do with this. Nikki said, we're going to light paint Kalina. And I said, okay, well, it's a tough job, but somebody's got to do it. So, but you can, the thing is you can't move, but it worked out just fine. You can even light paint sweet potatoes that have sprouted. This one I found this under my sink. I said, we got to do this. And my wife said, you are crazy, but we did it anyway. And then I started looking at things like, that maybe have some more commercial value. So, things like motorcycles, commercial buildings, you know, aircraft, architecture, indoor architecture, you know, automobiles. And so my very first my very first application for the ASP Fellowship was I don't know what the title of it was, but basically it was the idea of light painting. So I had all kinds of different light painted objects, including a lot of the things that you just saw here. And the judges didn't like that. That says too much diversity. You need to have it a little bit more focused. But you know, the idea was light painting. The idea wasn't subject matter. But I've discovered over the years that I think the thing that provides the most commercial value, potential anyway, is cars. And a lot of my light painting students have gone on. I've had one of my fellows who goes to Barrett-Jackson every year now, and he has a booth set up, and you know, he does hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of business every year because he wants to work hard. And I don't want to work hard. I don't need to do this. And I just want to have fun doing it. So I don't want to make it a job, but I'm glad to see that, you know, people are out there making it work. This was the very first light painting I ever did. It was like only 3 months after I had gone to see Harold. A friend of mine had a Ferrari in his garage, but we couldn't go outside because it was too cold. So I did the light painting of it, and you know, it ended up being, I had no idea what I was doing. It certainly isn't my best work, but I entered in competition and went on to the World Cup finalists. So I was like, whoa, that's pretty cool. And that was the first time I think that light painting had ever gotten any kind of recognition at that level of competition. But it certainly is nothing like I would do it now. But I had to create a background, and you can't even really see it, but there's a brick background as well, because we did it in the guy's garage. You know, this is what it looked like in his garage. So, and then last year, this light painting I did of this Harley Davidson went on to the World Cup, and it won 4th in the world. So I was like, okay, it's getting its recognition. So I'm happy about that. But it's, you know, and I think it's been a long time coming. A lot of times when I watched the judging, the judges did the same thing early on anyway. The judges did the same thing that I did. They looked at it and go, they couldn't deconstruct it. Like, I don't know how this is done. So 78, you know. And I'm not saying that happened all the time, but I did notice it a couple of times where, like, if they couldn't figure it out, it was a lower score. So anyway, so how, you know, I'm going to give a little background on how it's done, and we'll go over the photographs. But basically, you know, I use a series of lights, different size lights. The upper left one is the one I've done most of my work with, the large scale work with the airplanes and so forth. And then one in the upper right is just a tiny little flashlight. They do like still lights and so forth. And then the other two on the bottom are just kind of medium-sized lights that are set up for you know, for specific needs. The fun part about it is that, you know, you don't need a lot of stuff. This entire set that you're looking at right here probably costs $300 to make, $400. So it's not a super expensive process to get this thing up and running. And this is basically how the images are put together. In individual lighting, you can see where the lighting is put on the motorcycle in just very small segments to accent parts of the bike, whether it's the wheel or the fork or the engine or the seating. But you basically build it one image at a time. And, you know, again, you can look at this photograph, and there's just no possible way that you could create this with any kind of single or even a multiple light setup. You just don't get the detail. You can't get the lighting like you could any other way. And, you know, at the end of the day, you know, what middle-aged or old man retiree wouldn't just love a photograph of this hanging in his man cave? So that basically is how that all works. And again, there's no possible way you could make that any other way, make that image any other way, especially if you want to bring out the highlights and the features of the bike. So the portfolio that you saw at the imaging was not set up exactly the same way as the judges saw. This is how the judges saw the images. Gabriel was really good about being able to help me kind of line things up. And if you look closely, you'll see, red on one side, red on the other, yellow on one side, yellow on the other, black on one side, it's kind of all set up that way. That was on purpose, but I think it probably helped keep and I'm not a designer, so I needed help with all this stuff, but it seemed to work pretty well, and the cars are facing in the correct positions and so forth. I actually did have to turn a few cars the other direction and change the steering wheel so that they were still left-hand drive, but basically this is how the judges viewed the images. So I'm just going to kind of run through these to show you kind of what we started off with and then how it ended up. So to me and this is what, if you go to my website, you'll see that this is how I have all my images set up, because I want a viewer to look at this and go, okay, this is where you started and that's where you ended up, like, whoa, that's really cool. Or here's this Mustang here. I mean, most of the time when you have a client, especially a paying client, who looks at an image like this, is the kind of the best that they can ever do with their iPhones is this. And to be able to get something like this is really high value. They'll pay it a lot, and they do. They pay a lot for this kind of work. So so most of these images, almost all of them, except for a few that I used for teaching at Texas School and other workshops, were all done for paying clients. This is another one that was all done, and you can really get a sense of the car, but at the same time, the lighting is done on the gas pumps and on the oil pump and on the pillars and everything else to create that look. This was done at Texas School a couple years ago. There's only one place at the school where you can go where it's dark enough where you can do this shot. It's right behind the hotel, and even there you can kind of see there's some lights behind it, but that's how that worked. This is a friend of mine, has a whole bevy of cars, probably 15, 20 cars. Probably got $3 million worth of cars in his garages. And this is he calls this his beater car. And that's again, there's probably 35 or 40 different images on this. Each spoke of the wheel got a different light. That's what makes it kind of fun. Another friend of mine who has a car barn with 44 cars in it right now. We're in the process of light painting all those and putting lights on the barn. And again, that's what it looks like. This was done this is another Texas School project. Don Dixon doesn't like us to do stuff at night. So we have to find places where we can do it during the day. And there's a fella not far from the school who has a whole bunch of Porsches, and I've done 3 or 4 of his Porsches over the years as part of the class project, because his garage can close all the way up and it's dark, and we can do this during the middle of the day. So that's where we ended up with that one. This guy actually raced at Le Mans. I couldn't believe it. He's got a picture of this 914 in the background, or one of those racing vehicles, an F1 racer, and I said, that's really cool. He said, yeah, that's me. 1979, I was racing. I looked him up, I queried him, and sure enough, he was. It's another one, the same guy who had the Porsche 911. This is another one of his cars. There's 50 of these in the world. He's a high school friend of mine, actually. This is owned by a father-in-law of the girl that used to work for me. And a week after this picture was done, he parked it on a hill and forgot to put the brake on, and it slid into a stone wall, and the whole front corner panel is all crunched up. So he's really glad he had the picture. Hard to find a front corner panel for a 68, 69 Camaro, but they exist, but you pay through the nose for them. This is done at a workshop with Clay Blackmore up in Washington, D.C. And so that turned out. It was pouring down rain when we took that picture. You never know it, but it was absolutely pouring down rain. We had a lot of chamois. It's another Texas School shot. You can see the light in the stairwell behind. We just took it all out. And this is the guy that fell at the car barn. This is on his property. Had a cool little, that log cabin was actually deconstructed from Kentucky, and he brought it up, had it brought up to have it reconstructed in his yard. And so he had this 35 Buick, and I thought that'd be cool. He says, yeah, I got a Tommy gun too. So this is called the gangster getaway. There's my friend again with all the expensive cars. This is a Ferrari 812, I believe, and that's there. So, and this is Jack again, our Texas school guy, and that's a picture of him driving that car in the background. And that's a really cool car. It's a Pan America 55, I think it is. This was done in McKinney, Texas, and this was done in front of a church, and we did that. Oops, that's the 32 Ford, I believe. This is the most complex image I ever did. I think there's over 220 photographs in this particular one. Kevin Raber, my friend who told me about light painting, or showed me or published that article about light painting in his website, was at this one, and he came down and we arranged for this. Is Ashley Seeger part of the group? Was she part of the ASP group? That name ring a bell? Anyway, she was the host for this particular workshop. But that's what that looks like at the end. So each one of those bushes was individually lit. The pillars were individually lit. All the everything done there is kind of I wouldn't do it like this now, but it's still kind of fun to look at. Another one of these, my high school buddy, another one of his cars, a 800 horsepower Yanko Corvette. And as all that was done. Back to John, the guy with the car barn. That's part of his 30,000 square foot home that you see there. And it's a 41 Packard. Pretty cool car. This one was actually reversed. I had to reverse it because for the positioning on the panel, so I had to move the steering wheel to the other side. I hope it doesn't disqualify me. And my high school buddy Bob, that's his 56 Cadillac, 100-point Barrett car, absolutely beautiful. Power everything, power trunk, power door closers, stuff that happened in 1956. I didn't know they had that stuff in cars. Power hood retractor, convertible retractor. This is done at Ben Shirk's place down in Iowa. And his neighbor owned the service station and the 50 and 71 Mustang. And he said, he told me that his dad told him when he was 16 years old, the thing he regretted more than anything else was he sold his first car. So this kid bought this car. I don't know how he could afford it back in 1971. He bought this car when he was 16 years old, and he's owned it ever since. It has 20,000 original miles on it. So I think he lost about $3,500 in depreciation just driving it from his house to here for me to photograph. But this was done at the same place where that motorcycle was done, and it's at the Wisconsin Professional Photographers Association's annual convention up in northern Wisconsin. And Doc, who owns the motorcycle, also owns this original Cobra. That's not a fake. That's the original one. It's pretty cool. Ralph Romagera's buddy down in New Orleans owned this car and a couple others that we light painted. And so first and only Thunderbird I've ever done. And we're back to John, my buddy with car barn, and this is his 28 Packard, which I think is one of my favorite cars. Just the coolest car ever. Beautiful in every way. And this classic 63 split window Corvette. This was done in outside of Minneapolis. And that gas station is actually a candy store now, but they kept the gas station parts part of the deal. So does anybody have any questions about this?
Feel free to unmute yourself.
Yeah, John. I'd like to know, I'm sure there are lots of people who, like me, who have thought about getting their fellowship and are not familiar so much with the process, and how many times did you end up doing it? And did you change what you wrote? Because the writing part is so much of an important part of it. Just more about your whole application and what you had to go through to get there.
Certainly. I'm glad you asked about that, Ken. The thing that can I stop sharing now? How's that? Now I'm back to normal. So the fellowship part of it, I tried 4 times. I didn't get accepted until the 4th time. The first time, as I mentioned, the comments that I got from the judges were that because the theme was light painting, but the photographs were lots of different kinds of light painting. And even though that was the theme, the images didn't, the only common thread of them, those are done with the light painting process, which I thought was kind of, that was what I wanted to show, but it didn't work out that way. And that's fine. I don't get all bent out of shape when people say, no, I don't like this, or I don't reject it. It's just like, okay, what else do I need to do? So every time I did this, I took a lot from it. Also, that first time they said that my paper was not long enough. It was the right length. It had the right number of words, but they said you have bigger story here to tell. So, year 2, I thought I would just do a different arrangement, and the theme was this time was things that go. So that will concentrate on, airplanes, automobiles, and motorcycles. I thought maybe that would, allow that, a little bit more of a condensed version of what light painting is, but that theme of things that go. And I can't remember exactly what the title of the paper was, but it's something like that. And the comments were still not coherent enough. The paper was fine, but the images were still not cohesive enough. So the last time what I did was, by that time I'd had a really nice selection of automobiles to choose from. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to make it all automobiles and do it this time. My paper goes back to my first class in high school. And some of you that have been in my class have heard this story before, but when I was a junior in high school, I was called down to the guidance office, and they said, you have a hole in your schedule next year. In your senior year, you have to take another class. And the school I attended was the largest 3-year school in the state of Wisconsin. It's huge. And they had a gigantic, just a big, huge list of electives. And being a child of the 60s, I said, too much work. So I literally just went like this, like that. And I stuck my finger on the paper somewhere, and I looked at it and went, oh, that's photography. Okay, that's cool. So, and that's how I got started in photography. My teacher was a mentor, and he took me under his wing, and he did weddings and seniors and portraits on the side. And he kind of showed me the ropes that way, and gave me some good pointers on photography and on life that I still have to this day. He passed on a few years ago, but he's just a great guy. And lately I've been going back to I have thousands and thousands of rolls of black and white film that I processed, starting with the very first one. And I just basically, the way I filed them was sequentially. So 1 was the very first roll I ever did. 2 was the second roll I ever did. 3, and all the way up to the hundreds or thousands or whatever that I finally, when I stopped doing film. So I'm in the process right now going back and looking through those files again and digitizing them. And it's really been fun to go back and kind of revisit those images, which are now over 50 years old. And, but that I give a lot of credit to Warner Halverson, who is my teacher, in the paper. And, you know, and all the other, everybody has influences, people that have touched your lives in some way or another. You know, Don Feltner was my marketing guy, Lyle Ramsey, Charles Lewis. There were just, you know, Monty, there were just so many people that had an effect on what I do. And that's how we all grow. You know, you go to one place and you're in this direction and you see somebody and now you're going in another direction and you're going in another direction after that. And that's the exciting part about photography. And so, you know, I had to make a living of this because I didn't have a second job. I didn't have a wife that worked. I didn't have family money. So I was always interested in growing my business. And so that whole marketing thing took off in the 90s, where I did the marketing boot camps and all that sort of thing, where we had people coming in from all over the country, all over the world, actually, to go to those things in Las Vegas. And but I've always kind of over the years, and this is follows through in the paper too, I get bored easily. And I think getting bored is a great way to grow, because you have to go off and find something else to do. And I just don't like to do the same thing over and over again. So, you know, for a long time at boot camps, I learned early on, and this is, again, I explain this in the paper, I learned that what I would do is everybody who registered, I made them fill out an evaluation of their business, how many sessions they did of each of the product lines they did, the average sale, total sales, how many employees they had, and they had to send that in. And I didn't use the individual images, the individual data, but I put into a database, and I would put out this data for the people to see. And every year, I started doing these in 1996, and about 2004 or 5, I started noticing something interesting, and that is that the high volume studios were the ones that were surviving. The low volume, the mom and pop studio had a brick and mortar studio, realizing all of a sudden they went after the big average sale, and their volume kept lowering, but then all of a sudden pretty soon it was so low they didn't have enough volume to support their business. And so I was able to kind of see this in advance. So I said, okay, you can't just survive on marketing. You have to have a product that's a little bit different. So being bored, I would do things like, this is long before it was very accessible, but I would do things like HDR and infrared photography, and HDR infrared and panoramic infrared HDR, all kinds of crazy stuff, just to expand the vision that I had. And so and that went on. And then in 2013, I got hooked up with light painting, and so I was like, okay, this is something that's totally different. And I'm still evolving. You know, I'm enthralled with making images with the drone, doing things that are, like going off to faraway lands and making photographs of animals with insanely long telephoto lenses and stuff. And so there's always got to be something that keeps you active and keeps you busy. So I don't know, if that answered your question directly, Margaret, but that's kind of basically how that all put together. But I'm ready to answer any more questions.
Denise, does that answer your question for you?
Yes.
Yeah, pretty much. Because it was the
Denise, I apologize, Margaret.
process that I was interested in.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and it's not I mean, some people like Randy, he just got his right off the bat. Good for it. That's great. Fantastic. But I felt like I grew each time, like I figured out, and it's like everything else, like learning what the judges look for in IPC judging. You figure that out. It's a game. You got to play that game.
Well, I know that because I got my educational associate and I had to take 2 tries.
Yeah, and that's there's nothing wrong with that at all. I think that's,
Oh, I
think
learned a lot from the first one.
yeah, it's a great learning process. And so I'm glad it happened that way. I didn't care, you know. Dennis kept calling me, said, John, you're not going to believe this. I'm like, oh, okay, well, just let's go from there. Let's move on. You know, my feelings don't get hurt. I'm happy to grow from that.
John,
So-
John has mentioned several times about his paper. For those of you that are interested in reading his paper, in our ASP magazine in a future edition coming up, you will be able to see that paper and read it for yourself. It'll be published soon, and it'll certainly be well worth reading. So look forward to a future issue of ASP magazine to read that article. Robin, you had your hand up.
I did. So back to the process of doing this light painting on vehicles. So it's obvious that the camera never moves. Obviously, that stays where it is. So my question is, are you changing camera settings at all, or is it just it's all done with the different moving of the lights and everything? And that being said, how long does this process take? I know it's different for every vehicle, but just kind of like hours, days.
Okay. You just asked me about a 4-hour question there, but
I know, I'm
there's-
sure I did.
okay. In a nutshell, the photography is as you expected. The camera doesn't budge. You can't even touch the camera. So everything is tripped wirelessly using an app that'll trigger your camera.
Uh,
And then the image goes to an iPad so that you can see it, make sure that it's right. The light exposure might be 5 seconds. It might be 10 seconds. You know, rarely is it longer than 15 seconds. And then all you're going to get, as you saw the picture of the motorcycle, you're just getting one little tiny little section. And then you move on. And you make, you know, this is one of those times when overshooting is okay. You can shoot way more pictures than you're ever possibly going to need. When I do a car, for example, I use that I call it the lightsaber, and it goes across the vehicle, and I'm looking for those highlights to go across the panel of the cars. And you might have to do 5 or 6 of those before you get the lighting just right on that. And it takes a little bit of, I mean, it takes perseverance, basically. You have to just keep doing it and keep looking at it. And after you do a few vehicles or whatever it is you're doing, you kind of know what you're looking for. The biggest problem, the biggest issue that most people have when they do this is that you have to shoot with the long-term goal of there is one light direction. In an automobile, my definition of where the light direction should be would be like as if you had a 22-foot softbox right over the car. So if you look at my images, you'll see that there's I call it a grounding shadow around the vehicle all the way along. And the light looks kind of still like it's coming from that, but they're still, you know, they're still highlighting on, you know, the wheels and the steering wheel and that sort of thing, which of course are not appearing naturally. And I've actually posted some images to some light painting Facebook pages, and a lot of people were scratching their heads saying, well, how can you do it? 38 pictures, that's way too many. You know, you should be able to do this in 3. I said, you can't do it in 3. Oh, I can do it in 3. No, you can't. You can do a light painting, but you can't do this in 3, you know. But, you know, you go around and it just beat your head against the wall. And finally, you just go, that's fine, you know. And then I find out later the kid, this is a 19-year-old kid I'm talking to, you know. So, but it's that kind of process, and the exposure part of it is not as difficult as you might think, because you can see right away on your image if it's grossly overexposed or grossly underexposed. But after a while, you kind of get a feel for it, and I can usually do it without the first time and not have it be. Of course, I've done 300 of these, so I guess after a while you get pretty good at it, judging it. But it is not that hard to do. The images are then brought into Photoshop. Obviously, if you're using different light sources, you have to white balance them all to a standard. Otherwise, you're going to get different colors in every image. And then you just, instead of just pasting one image on top of the other and blending them together, if you did that, your file would be so big you couldn't stand it. I'm using a 100 megapixel camera, so there would be gigantic amounts of space on the file. So you just basically use your lasso tool and you select just what you light painted, and then you copy and then you paste that in place, and then you brush it in, you make a mask and you brush in just what you want, and then you do it again. You keep doing that over and over again. I've created a set of a standard methodology of doing this, and one of the key pieces to it is an action set that actually does all the work for you. Just, you click the button and it pastes it, it makes the mask, it, gives you your brush and so forth. So you just brush it in. So it goes a lot quicker than you might think. I can bang off I can do the light painting of a car, in about an hour. And then I can do the editing maybe in 90 minutes or so. So, but the payback is that it's, every single light painting I've ever sold has been on metal, and typically it's 40 to 90 inches tall. So, the one image is way more fun and way less work than doing a whole bunch of seniors and stuff for, that kind of thing for the same amount of money, So, and it's a blast because you're dealing with CEOs, you're dealing with type A's that are just, they have more money than they have good sense, and they listen to what you do. I get them involved. They hold the light for me. They click my shutter for me. I get them super excited. It's a process. And it works really, really well because they have, if you have a guy who has a Porsche, he's got friends who have Porsches, and all they have to do is go in and see that Porsche on the guy's man cave and say, I want that. It's like, and so you can have 10 people in your town who are doing light painting, but everybody has their own set of clients, and there's no overlap there either. So it's a pretty simple and easy process. I do have, can I screen share one more time here?
Absolutely.
Okay. I want to go back because
Robin, did that answer your question?
Yeah, that was
Okay.
great.
If there-
And just after you're done, John, Michael has a question. So Michael,
Yeah.
hold on until John's done with this.
all right,
Okay.
hang with me here, Michael. I'm gonna get this right. Let's see if I can share this. Let's see. Are you seeing that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Right, Corvette.
So if you want to see the tool set that I use, okay, I've got this. I don't know if you can see that or not, but up on top there, it says workshops and tool set info. If you go to that, you capture that with your phone, or you just type that in. It's just on hartmanlightpainting.com and then /workshop. There's a thing about I have a workshop that photographers in Stevens Point come to, and but there is a little button at the bottom that says John's tool set. So if you click on that, you can see all the lights, and there's the links to it. So if you want to get them, I don't get paid for it, but if you want to see what I'm using, you can definitely do that. And then if you're interested in learning this without, you don't want to come to Stevens Point, I do have video. I spent my COVID time building this video tutorial series on light painting, and it shows you how to do it without you can do it, learn it from your home. And that's johnhartmanlightpainting.com /classroom will tell you about. So that's what that is. I'm not trying to advertise, but I just have that because somebody's going to ask. If they don't ask, they're going to ask me later. I'd rather have it. So you have the ability to take a look at, peruse it. If you're interested in anything, or if you have any questions, I'm not trying to sell you anything. If you have any questions about anything, I'll be glad to give you all the information that I have. So, okay.
Great. Thank
Okay,
you.
Michael, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do have a question. What strategies do you use when you have a total white background, like a motorcycle and like a white wall or something, or still life in a white wall?
I will never use a white wall.
Really?
Because remember, if I do, I'll put the subject up so far in advance, so far up in front of that white wall that the wall is black. Because if you remember, when you're brushing you're brushing the information in, if you have a white wall, that's going to show.
Yeah.
Because we're using blending mode lighting, so the only thing that you're brushing in is anything that's lighter than what's already there. So you want a totally black background, and that you can at least you can light the background later and add that in. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because I may keep some on.
No light on it whatsoever, and then if you want, you can put light in. You can put like a calcularis kind of look through it, or slashing lights and so forth, or just paint it all in, or add a color to it, or whatever you want to do. But you absolutely have to do the light painting portion of the subject with a totally black background.
Yeah, I'll keep that in mind next time I go to the studio in Alexandria. Sometimes I light paint a motorcycle.
Well, do you remember when when you came for the workshop, when we did the still life, I believe I did this anyway. We just use a painted background in the still life, but I put a black cloth over it first. So we did all the light painting of with the black cloth over it. Then I flipped the black cloth off, and then I light painted the background, and the subject was just in silhouette. So when you brush that in, there nothing gets on the subject at all. It's just the background.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, any other questions?
Yeah, I had a question for John.
All right.
It's Ed. Hey, John, how you doing?
who are you?
It's Ed
Oh,
Petty.
yeah. Hey, good to see you. Yeah.
Yeah, nice to see you too. I learned a lot from you over the years. This is interesting listening to this chapter of your life. But I just had a question. When you show the photos of the cars, you're showing them in the daytime. So do you put them there in the light so you can see where they're going to line up with everything in the background, like that building? And then they sat there all day till it was dark, and then you did the light painting at night?
Good question. And the answer is kind of. What you have to have is you still have to have a, oh, let me go back and share again. Can I do that?
Yes,
All right.
you can.
Okay. I'll go back just to show you. Well, let's see. How do I do this? Right there. Okay. I got to find. Backwards. Trying to get back out of it. It's not letting me. Not letting me go to the. Not letting me do anything here. How do we get out of this? Stop share. Okay, I guess I have to go back. Uh-oh. Are you all there?
Yeah, we're still here.
Can't see anything now. Nice to work with a professional. Let's see. Others. Yeah, I'm not seeing anybody right now.
We can see you.
Okay. Well, that's pretty scary. That's creepy, actually.
You had a black screen up a moment ago, but now you're back to the general.
Yeah. I'm at my Finder now, and I'm just everything is totally blank. Okay, well, let's see if I can go hide others. Zoom. Hide others. Can I do that? Oh, yeah, here we go. Boom. Ah, there you are. Whew. At least I can see you. Okay, so sometimes you want like a sunset capture in the background. So, when I go to the client's home long in advance, days in advance, we plan out. I have my little sun thing on my phone. I can show where see the sun's going to go. And so we line up the vehicle, exactly where it's going to go. So when we actually do the photography, it's all ready to rock and roll. So we start making captures of the sky first, if we want to have the sky in the photograph. And sometimes there's cool clouds. Occasionally there's a cool sunset actually that you want to put in there. Sometimes it's just the dusk, but so you got to make those captures first, and then there's a period in between there. I call that the drink beer period, where you just kind of sit there and you have a beer while you're waiting for it to get dark enough to start. Then when you still have twilight, you start capturing long exposures so that you have this look of it's almost like it's dark, but there's no shadows or anything. And that image then becomes, you brush that back in as your background. So because otherwise you have, all you're doing is you're lighting around the car, and I'm assuming we're talking about vehicles. And so you have this car with a shadow around it, nothing else there. You got to have something there. So what you have to do then is you have this image that you took and you underexpose so it looks dark, and you bring that up just enough so that it looks just right. It looks like the light painting looks like there was a light on it, but at the same time, you have a foreground and a background. So does that make sense, Ed?
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah.
And I've had guys say, what kind of beer do you like? So we get there and there's a six pack there. I'm kidding. I don't drink while I'm doing this, but he has a good time while I'm doing it. So so basically that's how that operates. And I'm trying to, if I can find an image, I will show it to you, but I don't know why I can't. I'm going to try it one more time to share.
All right. We're almost out of time, so go right ahead and give it a shot.
I guess maybe
Well, I had to thank John for one time at Texas school. He had the Ferrari or something out there. And he wasn't using it yet, so I got the light painted for my class in
Isn't
front
that
of the
fun?
hotel.
Yeah, that's right. I remember that. Yeah. Okay, so
We're seeing
here we
questions
go.
and comments. Okay, now we're getting your screen.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to show one picture just to kind of show you which, let's see if I can find it. Oh, that's the wrong one. Here it is. What would make sense? Probably. Because a lot of these were done. Well, this is a good one right here. Okay. So you can see the lights, the background, the foreground was just captured as part of a, as part of the ambient light image. And I'll go one more thing here just to see if I can do this. Bear with me just for a second. Because I think you asked a really good question. And I'm doing a lot more of this now. Than these pictures I did, a lot of times I actually lit it with a light. And I discovered that I didn't think that was really accurate or realistic enough. So I'm gonna see if I can find one here. Yeah. Oh, this is okay. This is one that I did recently. All right. There, got it. Okay, now can you see that or not?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So the trees, the foreground, everything was done with just the ambient light. And then the light on the vehicle, you cast that, what I call the grounding shadow, going all the way around it like this. And there's a little bit of light that spilled off from the light when I was using it. But all of this on the grass, the background behind the vehicle, and then all of the trees and stuff were all ambient light captures. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, so I'll stop that share. All right, any other questions?
John, we'll have to cut it at this point. I apologize.
All right,
This was a remarkable presentation, and we really appreciate everything that you shared. Just a reminder that this has been recorded, and it will be on our website so that you can come back and revisit it. Again, next week, Randy's going to be up. Randy, this is going to be a tough act to follow. No pressure, but we're looking forward to having you share what process you went through. And if you were at imaging, you saw some remarkable images from Randy's presentation for his fellowship. And that'll be next February 15th, next week at 12 p.m. Central Time. Following that, Jonathan Adams will be up February 22nd, where he'll be sharing his educational associate degree. And then on February 29th, again, we have Meet the Board. You'll certainly want to be with that. And then our final fellowship recipient, which will be Joe Glida on March 7th, where he'll be sharing his fellowship. Again, images of distinction are open, and appreciate everybody for being here this day. I know you learned something, and we're certainly edified. So again, John, thank you so much for your time, for your talent, and for generously sharing with us. Thank you
thank you for
for everybody's
having me.
participation. John, go ahead. Any last word?
I appreciate the invite, appreciate being here, and looking forward to Randy and Joe's and John's presentations in a couple weeks.
Yeah, we have a remarkable month ahead of us. That's because we have a remarkable audience. So thank you one and all. Thank you for being here. Have a great day, and we will see you next week. Goodbye, everyone.
Yep.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Thanks a
you.
lot. Yep.
Later.
Thanks.
Great.